Hi, I'm Rob with Hayneedle, and this is a short video on the assembly of the Vinton Kitchen Island. The estimated time on this assembly is around an hour, and the tools you will need are an Allen wrench, which is provided, and a Phillips head screwdriver, which is not provided. Start by opening your box and removing its contents. Then locate your instructions. On the front and inside, you'll find a parts and hardware list. Take a brief inventory to make sure you have all the pieces needed for this assembly. Using 4 of our screws labeled as 5, we'll now attach our pieces W, U, and V. To do this, line up the grooves on U and V and line up the holes on the outside. Then insert your screws and tighten down using a Phillips head screwdriver. We'll repeat this step with our 2 remaining screws to attach our piece W on the opposite side. Now that we have both our sides tightened on, we'll now take our panel labeled as Y and insert into our grooves. Then using 4 of our same screws, we'll attach our piece X to the top. Now that we have our first drawer fully assembled, we'll repeat these steps for our second drawer. Using 4 of our screws labeled 3, we'll now attach our brackets 1 and 2 to our pieces C and D. Let's start with D and piece 2. Make sure you put the first screw lining up with the hole in the first hole of your bracket. Insert 2 screws, 1 in each hole. Use your Phillips head screwdriver to fully tighten. You'll repeat this step and installing your second bracket labeled as 1 onto your piece C. Using 4 of our screws labeled 17 for each of our casters, we'll now attach our casters to our piece G. You'll want to make sure that your pieces 16 are on the same side and your casters 15 are on the same side. So take your first caster and in the pre-drilled holes of G, line up your 4 holes. Then insert your screws into the holes, and we'll be using a Phillips head screwdriver to fully tighten into place. Once you have your caster in place, you'll repeat this step for your 3 remaining casters. Using our magnet and 2 screws labeled as 8, we'll now attach to our piece H. Start with your first magnet, line up the holes and make sure the magnet is facing away from you. Then insert your screws into the holes using a Phillips head screwdriver to fully tighten. You'll repeat this step for your next set of hardware labeled 8 on the opposite side. Using 4 of our bolts labeled 4, we'll now attach our sides C and D to our bottom labeled G. You'll line up your pieces onto the side. We'll start with D. Once in place, insert your bolts, and using your Allen wrench, we're going to fully tighten into place. You'll repeat this step on the opposite side with your piece C. Using 2 of our screws labeled as 4 and 2 of our dowel rods labeled as 12, we'll now attach our piece H to our base. Insert a dowel rod into each end. Then in the holes under, we're going to insert the dowel rod into the sides. Once both dowel rods are in place, you'll take your screws and from the outside on each side, we're going to insert and tighten using our Allen wrench. Using 4 of our screws labeled as 3, we'll now attach our brackets 1 and 2 to our piece E. We'll start with 2. In the last hole of 2, we'll line up with the hole on E and insert our screws. Insert 1 into the other hole on E. then we'll tighten down using our Phillips head screwdriver. Once you have 2 tightened into place, you'll turn over E and repeat this step on the opposite side with your piece 1. Using 2 of our screws labeled as 4 and our dowel rod labeled as 13, we'll now attach our piece E to our base. Start by inserting your dowel rod into the middle of H, then taking your piece E and in the hole on the end, insert that into your dowel rod. Now take your 2 screws and from the opposite end, we're going to insert into place and into our piece E. We'll then tighten down using our Allen wrench. Next, using 4 of your dowel rods, we'll insert 1 into each of the 4 holes on the back side of our base. Then take your pieces L and insert the dowel rods into the end. Once you have both of your pieces L in place, you'll then take your 4 pieces labeled as K and slide into the grooves in between each opening on your back. Using 4 of our screws labeled as 5, we'll now attach our piece M to the side of our base. Line up the holes on your base with the holes in M. Then insert your screws, 1 into each of the 4 corners, using your Phillips head screwdriver to fully tighten. Using 2 of our bolts labeled as 4, we'll now attach our piece N to the opposite far side of our base. Line up the holes in N with the holes on the side of our base and insert both of your bolts into the holes from the inside. Once you have your piece N lined up, you'll use your Allen wrench to fully tighten your bolts. Using 2 more of our bolts labeled 4, we'll now attach our piece N to the opposite end, but first we'll take our pole labeled as O and insert into the middle of N and also into the hole of our opposite end. Once in place, again insert your bolts and use your Allen wrench to fully tighten. Using 4 of our dowel rods and 2 of our bolts labeled 4, we'll now attach our piece F to our base. Start with your dowel rods. Insert 1 into each of the 4 holes on the back side. Then take your piece F, making sure the groove side is faced back, and insert the dowels into it as well. Once you have your dowels inside your piece F, you'll now take your 2 bolts labeled as 4, insert 1 into each hole in the middle, and use your Allen wrench to fully tighten. Now take 4 of your bolts labeled 4 and insert one into each corner of your base. Once you have all 4 in place, you'll go back with your Allen wrench and fully tighten. Using 6 of our screws labeled as 6, we'll now attach our piece J to the back left part of our base. Line up the holes on the hinge with the pre-drilled holes on the base. Insert your screws and tighten them down using a Phillips head screwdriver. Once you have all 6 in place, we're going to repeat this step to attach our piece I on the opposite side. Using your remaining 18 screws labeled as 6 and our 3 hinges labeled as 19, we'll now attach our pieces A and B. Start by pressing A against B and lining up the holes in A and B with the holes inside of your hinges. We'll then insert our screws into each hole and tighten down using your Phillips head screwdriver. You'll repeat this step for your 2 remaining hinges. Using 2 of our dowel rods, we'll now attach our tabletop A and B to our base. Insert your dowel rods into the holes in the middle. Then take your tabletop and insert the dowels into the holes located in the bottom. Using 8 of our screws labeled as 20, we'll now secure our tabletop to our base. Start by inserting the screw, one into each of the 4 holes along the front. We'll then use our Phillips head screwdriver to fully tighten. Once you have your front 4 in, you'll repeat the step along the back on the inside. Now take 4 of your door pins labeled as 10 and insert one into each of the 4 holes on the bottom of the doorway. Using our hardware labeled as 9, we'll now pre-assemble our first door labeled as S. Take your first piece and over the pre-drilled hole in S, line up and insert your screw. Using your Phillips head screwdriver, we're going to tighten into place. Once you have your screw fully tightened into your piece F, we're then going to take our piece 10 and insert into the end of S, and our knob labeled as 7, we're going to insert our bolt from the back and twist on. We're going to repeat these steps for our 3 remaining doors. We'll now install our doors. In the bottom of your R shelf, we're going to insert the door pin and push down the one on the top and slide over to the hole. Once in place, you can close the door and repeat this step with your door S and also with your 2 remaining doors. Using 4 of your clips labeled as 11, we'll insert one into each hole on both sides of our inside left cabinet. Once in place, we'll then take our shelf labeled as P and lay on top. We're going to repeat this step on the right side with our shelf Q. Add your knobs that you used for your doors on each of your 2 drawers, then insert and enjoy your new island.